Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another exciting series in the EQA Professional Development Workshop. Before we get on with the introductions and introduction to the team, please just like everyone online to introduce themselves. We have few minutes before we get started, so please let us have your name, your district, or the school that you're representing in the chat box. We'll do that for just about 5 minutes before we start the program, before we start the introductions proper. So please let us have your name, the district, or the school that you're representing in the chat box. Thank you. Okay, very well. I can see a lot of responses. Mr. Kintola Sikiru, good morning. Good morning. Mrs. Joseph from Quiver School, good morning. Mrs. Oluwashore Omotayo from Junior Secondary School, we see you, good morning. We have representatives from Aguda Junior Grammar School. Good morning, Mrs. Muradike. We also have from Dairy Farm Secondary School, Savage Lukman Shehu. Good morning, sir. All evaluators here too. We have people representing from District 1, District 4, Saboyaba, Itiosa. Oh, nice. All the way. We have from Surulere, we can see a representative of Ikonri Estate Junior High School here too. Good morning to you all. Please keep introducing yourself, and in the next few minutes, we'll get started. We'll be joining in a few minutes. We want our facilitators to join us, and in a few minutes now we'll get started. It promises to be very interesting. The past series has been wonderful. I'm sure those that have attended our past module can testify to the fact that it's been very, very innovative. Please know that all these can be found on our YouTube page at eqalagos.com. You can also check www.oeqalagos.com. You can also check www.lagoslearnstogether.com to download and all our past module if you've missed any. We want to apologize for starting a bit late. We might be starting in the next 5 minutes from now. Please just know that we are online, getting everything set and making sure that you get the best of today's training. Thank you. It's quite interesting, the responses that we are getting today. Over 265 people online. That's quite impressive. We've had over 600 that registered for this workshop, and I know that as we progress, as we proceed, more of our participants will be joining us in the next, because we're going to start by say close to 10:30, and once our facilitator joins online, then we can get started. Also, please know that we are streaming live on our YouTube channel at OEQA Lagos. So just know that if you cannot join this webinar via the Zoom, you can also join us live on YouTube at OEQA Lagos. Okay, we'll be starting right about now. We have some participants are also joining us via the audio. The DG, Office of Education Quality Assurance, the person of Mrs. Abiola Seriki Ayene. Good morning, Ma. Our co-facilitator from Mirai Partners, all the way from the UAE, Ms. Christine Asigodse. Good morning. Directors here present, school leaders here present, great evaluators, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Welcome to another exciting series of the professional development organized by Office of Education Quality Assurance for school leaders and OEQA evaluators. A brief history, just know that this is the second series in this professional development training. We've had the first the first series, quality assurance, and that had about 7 modules. And this is the second one, quality of teaching and learning. This training started in September, precisely 21st of September. So we've really come a long way with these workshops. We've had 5 modules in this second series, and today will be the 6th module. Shortly, I'll just call on the DG, Office of Education Quality Assurance, for her opening remark and introduction to today's module. DG, Ma. If the DG can hear us, probably let me try and see if I can unmute her. Can the DG please hear us? Okay, the DG is joining via the audio. We have okay, good morning. Just we give a moment before we connect through the audio, just a moment. So keep the introductions coming before we get started in a few minutes. Please know that you can definitely use the chat box whenever you have a comment to contribute, or you can use the Q&A session. If you have a question you don't want to forget, you can quickly write it down in the Q&A section, and we will definitely pick it up when it's time for question and answer. I also want to appreciate our participants on the YouTube page. We see your participation there. We see your comments there. Please keep it coming, and do know that all the feedback we're getting from you would definitely be attended to. So, this one of the things that we are all experiencing now in this time and era, the new age, technology can be a bit tricky. So we're just trying to connect to the audio so that you can hear us live. You can get all the juice from today's session. Really very exciting that we've got a lot of school leaders here online, and it promises to be quite educative. So, in this age of technology, this is the reality that we find ourselves in. I'm sure if we call each other in a large space, over 300 of us, having a physical workshop like this, it might not be, we might not even get that space. It might be uncomfortable. Everybody, I know people can be in the comfort of their offices on the road and still learn. You can still learn. However, there are some challenges that we might face with technology, and today happens to be one of those days that the connection, the audio is not really clear, and because we don't just want to call everybody and just do something that people will say, oh, I didn't hear you. We're just trying and at the back end to make sure it is perfect. And we are almost getting it right, and we'll start shortly. I want to appreciate those that have been online, that joined early. Yeah, that shows your enthusiasm to want to learn, to want to know more, to want to add to what you already know. No knowledge is wasted. Even if you've attended a course similar to this, I'm sure there'll be one or two things that you will pick from today's session. Just get your pen and paper ready, as it promises to be full of information. For those joining in just right about now, we want to sincerely apologize for the delay in time that we are starting today's series. We've said that we've had the first series started in September 21st of September precisely, and we've had about 7 modules from that series: school development planning, self-evaluation, school improvement code, difficult conversation, conducting a lesson observation, and ethics. We've had that training, we've had that workshop. All these can be found on our OEQA YouTube channel at OEQA Lagos. You can also find it and download it from www.lagoslearnstogether.com or oeqalagos.com. And as it has been said, this is the second module, and this module is all about quality of teaching and learning. We've had five workshops actually from this series, from the second series, and today is the 6th module that we'll be having today. Aha. So, as it has been addressed earlier, that in this time, these are some of the things that we experience. To have over 300 people in a space could be a bit challenging, especially in this time of COVID, and hence the virtual sessions that we are having. And I can say that finally we've gotten our audio loud and clear, so that everybody can get the best out of today's training. And at this junction, without no further ado, I'd like to call on the DG Officer of Education Quality Assurance, Mrs. Abiola Seriki Ayeni, for the welcome address, and then we start right into the training. DG, good morning, ma. Welcome on board.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. It has been quite a morning. Please do forgive us for starting incredibly late. Of all the days to have technical difficulties, today was it. So I want to thank you all for staying strong, almost an hour as we go in. And I really hope that you are able to get more than you hoped for after this session. So I will just jump right into it. So today's session is focused on improving learning outcomes through feedback. I know that during a previous session, we had touched on this briefly, but we really want to delve into the feedback portion, why it's important, and how can we give you tangible tools to be able to do that, either with your students, with your teachers, and as evaluators with our schools. I'm not sure if Mrs. Nasragati was able to join us. I know we held her on for a while. Is she here?
Okay, no, man. No,
okay. So let's just jump into it. So we're going to go into the rules of engagement for today. Next slide, please. So we want to make sure that we're present and we're avoiding distractions. We want to make sure that we're able to participate and use a chat for questions and constructive comments, and we want to do the activities because I know that many of you have scheduled this into your day. It may be difficult for us to do a full session as we normally would have. I will definitely try my best to do it justice, and as a result of that, I may have to skip over, some activities, but nonetheless, please make sure that you're present and that we're just participating is really important. And we're going to be using the chat box for that for today.
Dijima, may I also add that today we've got the most participation from school leaders, as noticed in those that registered and those that are online. We've got a lot of school leaders online for today's session.
Wow. I really want to thank you. I think I should open my video for this. Do you see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, there we are. Okay. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being present here today. I know that you've been on for a while, so I really want to just try to do it justice, right? Okay. So what is a gift that you can give for free? It is indeed feedback. Not necessarily criticism, not necessarily brown nosing, but feedback. Whether we call it feedback, feed forward, which is a new term that we want to try to hang on to today. Expert feedback can really help students to improve their work, can help teachers to improve their practice, and also schools to improve their quality. Okay, this workshop will be presented in two parts, providing student feedback and providing teaching and learning feedback. The participants are expected to learn new and practical strategies for their quality education toolkit. Now, for the purpose of today and all the craziness that has happened today, I'm going to focus on the content. And as a result of that, I'm going to take off my video so that we can both focus on the content of today. Next slide. Okay. So the objectives of this session are to distinguish between feedback and feed forward. And I'm an English teacher, so feed forward is probably not technically a real word, but for the context and for the reasons that we're here today, we will be considering feed forward. Okay. Another objective is to be able to evaluate a range of practical strategies for providing effective student feedback. And to be honest, this really just ties in not just to the work that students are doing, the student work that they're expected to do. It also ties into behavior. It ties into the disciplinary reward system. It ties into everything, honestly. And third, we want to be able to apply the principles of feedback to plan high impact conversations with colleagues. The truth of the matter is, in giving feedback, you want to be able to make sure that there's a loop. It's not just one-sided. So you notice something that the student is doing, or you notice something that the student is struggling with, or something that they're doing well. You want your feed forward, or you want your feedback to basically move them forward in some way, which is why we want to play with this new term of feed forward. Okay, so this is the agenda. We've welcome and objective. We've done that. Icebreaker. Okay, we'll just do probably just one for the purpose of time. The feedback for true or false. From feedback to feed forward. I've touched on that very briefly, but we'll delve into it. A suitcase of strategies for students. Who doesn't want a toolbox they can actually use, right? Then professional feed forward. How can this change policy? How can this change the way things are done from the top at the school? Okay, so feedback, true or false? And we want to use the chat box for this. So feedback and marking are the same thing. Do we think this is true or false? And for the purpose of organization, I would say if you're answering one put them in numbers. So feedback and marking is 1. Good feedback must require hard work on the part of the teacher. That's 2. Students aren't going to read your feedback, so why even write it? That's 3. And we must evaluate feedback as part of whole school evaluation. That is 4. So for the purpose of this, if we can just number them so we can go through a feel for what the 337 participants are thinking about this is concerning feedback, true or false. And if Fauzia could just help me as they come in to sort of talk about what people are writing. I'm going to give us about two minutes to get on this. And remember, we have a class of 344 today, so we want to make sure that we're all participating. Okay, what we put in is what we will get back and even more.
Very well, Ma. So we want to see numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is not the time to please introduce yourself. Just get right to the activity. Want to know what is true or false. 1, 2, 3, and 4. From the chat box, DG, we have a lot of false coming in as true. People are saying number 4 is true. That's we must evaluate that as part of whole school evaluation. So for those that are just saying true, what number is true?
Exactly. So we do apologize, right? So what would have been better for us to do is to number that. So that's why I've said that if you're referring to number 1, you can indicate 1, and then you can write true, or you can write T, 4T, 4F, 4 true, 4 false.
We have a lot of false coming as true. A participant said number 1 is false. Feedback and marking are the same. That's false from her own indications. Keep the responses coming, keep the participation coming in as we pick it up in the chat box. And somebody said evaluation may not be the best way to get feedback from students. That comment was from Mr. Paul.
Okay. Okay, we are going to round up next 30 seconds, please. Let's just round up. So, I saw that someone else actually put everything false, true, false, false, true. So some people said that feedback and marking are the same thing. Some people said that's false. Good feedback must require hard work on the part of teachers. Some said false. Students aren't going to read your feedback, so why even write it? Someone said true. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay. So these are the answers. Feedback and marking are the same thing. A lot of us got this right, I think. No, marking is summative, whereas feedback aims to help a student improve. Think of feedback as monitoring. I know we're all familiar with monitoring and evaluation. So think of monitoring as all of those simple check-ins that get you to the finish line. And that's what feedback is, okay? So marking is after they've already done what they've done. But along the way, what you're noticing, how they're doing on quizzes, how they're understanding concepts in the classroom, right? Feedback. And feedback is holistic. It can be about the student attitude. It can be about their work. It could be about a particular standard. It can be about their skill. It can be about anything that moves the students forward towards your goals. Okay, so feedback and marking are not the same thing. Okay, number 2, good feedback must require hard work on part of a teacher. Okay, it can require hard work, but it doesn't have to. Okay, we'll share some time-saving strategies during this workshop. So I want to say, instead of hard work, I would say good feedback. It has to be smart work on part of the teacher. You have to have planned it. You can't just do it as it comes. You have to have embedded it into your planning, and you won't get it right the first time. It won't be perfect the first time, but you'll get progressively better when you notice the gaps. You'll get progressively better and realize that you need to keep getting feedback from your students as you go along, that the exam is too late to get feedback. How are they doing on homework? What particular aspects of the homework are they struggling on? Okay, that's just one example. Number 3, students aren't going to read your feedback, so why even write it? I'm sure most of us are nodding at this because to some extent it's actually very true to an extent, but we have to question, why is it true? And how can we turn that face around? Okay, so we'll share some strategies to increase your students' use of engagement with feedback. So sometimes the way in which we do it, maybe we're kind of stringent on how we do it. Maybe we don't engage them. Maybe we don't engage them on what the feedback should look like or be like, or the frequency. You know, that's why even when you're setting down classroom rules, they always tell you at the very beginning of class, involve them in the classroom rules, because you now refer to the fact that they helped create these rules. You didn't do it by yourself. Okay, so we must evaluate feedback as part of whole school evaluation. So this is absolutely true, and I believe most of us got it right, if not all. Okay, next slide. Can you go back? Okay. Okay, move forward. Thank you. Okay. So what is the role of evaluating feedback in whole school evaluation? This is the language we know, especially for evaluators on our line. This is our thing. This is our QA thing. Okay, so these are just some of the examples where feedback can be an important part of the evaluation process. So we have the federal government guidelines for quality assurance, and we know that Lagos State has actually gone a step further, and we're in the process of finalizing the draft of an addition to what federal government has given us. Okay, so number 1, standard 2.1, the quality of provision. That's the quality of teaching and learning. So the indicator 2.14, teaching is challenging to learners and promotes high learning outcomes. Obviously, when we say challenging, we don't mean it in a bad way. We mean that it's just right to get students to the next level. It's not too easy and it's not too hard. It's just right to push them slightly forward progressively. Number 2, standard 2.1, the quality of provision, which is also under the quality of teaching and learning. So this indicator 2.1.5, teachers use relevant teaching materials, and different teaching methods for effective learning. We know that not all students learn the same, and we want to be able to build on different types of learning methods for our students. We all know that they all have dominant one, but we want to be able to build on the different ways in which they can learn. So we are also empowering them with the toolbox so that they can learn in any situation. So this, the third one is standard 2.1, same thing, quality of provision, teaching and learning, but the indicator is 2.1.6. Time is well managed by teachers to help learners make progress. In order for you to manage your time, it's really, really from the planning and the feedback. Because sometimes you plan and you realize that, wow, what I planned is actually too much for this 45-minute session. Maybe we need to do it in a 90-minute session, or maybe we need 3 90-minute sessions. So we need to break it down, okay? So the teacher definitely needs to know how to manage their time well so that they can They can set realistic goals and outcomes for that particular class, and you can build on top of it day in and day out. And then the last one we have here, these are just a few examples, okay, is 2.2.3. Access to all curricular options by learners, including administration of the curriculum to suit learners with special needs. And this is still under the quality of provision, but this is 2.2, quality of curriculum and other activities. Okay, so the spectrum of curricular options that are available. Okay. So next slide. We've done the true and false. Okay, so now, like I said earlier on, this whole concept of feed forward is very different, and it's not something that we pulled out of thin air. Okay, this concept of feed forward was developed by Marshall Goldsmith. And Marshall Goldsmith really was looking into, okay, we're feeding back to the person. Yes, that makes sense. But can we focus on feeding forward, where the goal is not just to give the person a response? Okay, someone's saying it's not bold enough. Okay, we'll work on that later on. Where the goal is not just to give a response back to the person and it stays there, but the goal is to feed the person toward a set goal moving forward. Okay, moving forward. So we have to be honest that, you know, very few employees express that they find feedback improves their work. That is the honest truth. So you say, okay, you give an assignment to someone on your team and they do it, and you tell them you didn't do the work. Why didn't you do it? Okay, then what happens? They do it. But what has happened in between? What opportunities may have been lost if we have focused on a feed forward? So as a supervisor, how am I going to focus on, okay, this person didn't do this assignment. How can I get information from this person about how things will be different next time? Is it that the assignment was too large? Is it that it wasn't well delegated? Is it that there wasn't enough time? Is it that there weren't tools? Is it that they were just lazy? Is it that they didn't manage? I mean, there's so many things to come of it. So we really want to focus on this new term, which is feed forward, because the goal is not just the instant gratification that this conversation would give, but the goal is that they will get progressively better by having honest communication about what is wrong and what needs to be adjusted. And to be honest, with feed forwarding, it's not that the onus or the bulk of the weight is just on the supervisor. It actually also challenges the person to rise up because they know exactly what they need to be successful. Okay, so these are some sort of questions, you know, that can just get you thinking along those lines. Okay, so have you ever been called to your boss's office and given feedback? Okay, there's a pretty good chance that you're left annoyed and agitated, but feedback doesn't have to be like that. Just like I've said, it can be feed forward, and that's guidance that acknowledges what you have done and suggests where and how you continue to develop or improve. And I did mention the person that came up with this, Marshall Goldsmith, okay, for this concept of feed forward. I mean, it's really amazing. Sometimes the simplest things can, you know, change everything. Next slide. Okay, so of course we will still use the term feedback, okay, but we really want to emphasize that feedback should help people in the future. Okay, I want you to hold on to that. Feedback should really help people improve in the future. And that's why we want to hang on to this concept of feed forward. And we don't just want to critique their past. In the case of students, it should spark reflection. The child should wonder, okay, why is it that, I find this difficult? Why is it that I shy away from math, but I love art? Okay, so it should spark reflect, and then this will ultimately lead for them to refine their work, because the truth of the matter is we cannot improve the work of our students on our own. We can shout from morning to night. We can have a perfect curriculum, perfect work. If we like, have bad, doesn't matter. We need the children to be able to have a buy-in into their own learning and to take ownership over it. And this is how it can start, when we focus on where they are going. Okay, so I know we talked about these 5 principles toward that moves learning forward. I think we used this in one of our previous presentations. Okay, we used this in one of our previous presentations. So reflection and refinement based on feedback on part of the student. Okay, so what are the 5 key principles of feedback that we know moves learning forward? Okay, so number 1, feedback is about giving students the next steps to move, that will move them on in their learning. So we don't just want to say, you've answered this question wrongly. We want to say, okay, now I want you to do the corrections. I want you to do the corrections, showing the steps, and briefly write where you think, which step you're having trouble with. Okay, so we want to give them next steps to move them on in their learning. We don't just want the answer. We know the answer already. We don't need it. We don't need it as a teacher. We know the answers. We're the ones that set the questions. Okay, so feedback is not the same as marking. We've discussed that earlier on. Feedback should be more work for the student than the teacher. This is where it gets fun. Yes, believe it or not, when you put the ball in their court, they are the ones to do more work and not you. But it takes planning, smart planning, and hard work to plan for that, to be consistent with that, and to constantly do that. Never work harder than your students. Okay? Feedback should always have students think. Always. It should not make them question their worth or ability to learn, but it should always have students think. Feedback should cause a cognitive reaction and not necessarily an emotional one. We know that because we don't always do this, we may do it, but not in a planned way. Okay, we want to be able to offer feedback in a systematic way. And these are the principles that we need to keep in mind. The more we do this and we're focused and we're consistent, the students would actually have more of a cognitive reaction if we're able to reinforce this well. To achieve this, we want to focus on next steps rather on how well or how badly a student does. So in essence, we want progress. We want progress because they can do well today and not well tomorrow. They can get one question wrong that could be based on just a careless error, but we want progress. Progress is consistent. Progress is constant, and progress is sustainable. Progress is sustainable. And last, students must receive feedback in some form on a regular basis. This can be through verbal or written feedback, whole class or individual, or a combination of all of these things, depending on what works for your situation. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Dot marking. So these are some strategies. Okay. So dot marking. Has your piece of work been marked with dots? These dots mean an aspect of your work can be improved. Check the sentence or paragraph or calculation with the dot. Act on it in a purple pen and make the correction. We typically use a red pen for general corrections, but if we want to draw the child's attention to the particular place, if we want to draw the child's attention to the particular place, then consider using a different color pen. Okay, so it could be yellow, it could be green, something different than they're accustomed to. In this case, we've talked about purple. Someone said that they cannot see the slide. I don't know if that is the case for everyone.
I've written in the chat box that they may zoom in from their device. Please, if you cannot say it, you can zoom the slide from your phone or the device you're joining us with. Okay. However, it will be online after the training.
So it's going to be acted on in a purple pen or a colored pen. So the child will be making the difference. So you just do a dot, and the child will now go back and make that change in purple pen. It's also clear to you as a teacher from just seeing it. You don't have to even spend so much time reading it. You can just see the correction has been made because it's in purple pen. This is also making your job easier to make sure that they actually did what you told them to do. I know many teachers ask students to make corrections, but sometimes you won't know until you actually read through. And if you have 40 students, 50, 100, how many do you want to go through? So it's easier to put the ball in the students' court, have them use a different color pen to make the corrections, and you skim it and see that they've been done. Okay? All right, next slide. Now, SID, S-I-D, SID marking. Think through, what are the successes of the work? What are the successes of the work? So if you're doing creative writing and maybe this is a first draft, maybe you want to focus on those literary tools you've been teaching them, like figurative language, description, imagery. So maybe if their grammar is off, not to say you won't mark it all, but that is not the purpose of the success of a first draft, right? Because you're teaching them with a particular goal in mind. The grammar maybe can be taken up later, but if we had to prioritize, what are the successes of the work? Then how could the work be improved? How could the work be improved? The teacher should indicate one successful part of the work, one area of improvement, and one question. So 1, 1, 1. What's one thing they can do to improve? One successful part of the work, something they've done well, sorry. Then the second one is what can they improve? Then what question do you have? Quick. Next slide. Okay, so grow. Grow is specifically for writing, okay, and it's grammar, spelling, and the range of language, opportunities to improve, and what to do next. So you want to look at grow. This is kind of something you can use as a mini rubric. So maybe you can indicate G in this particular place where you see their grammar or spelling is not so great. Range of language, maybe they need to use better language or vocabulary, right? Then opportunities to improve. Then what do you want them to do next? What do you want them to do next? So if they're not using enough language and maybe you addressed it in a certain lesson, maybe you're referring them back to a certain lesson for language. Okay, next step. Dirt. Allow students to make their improvement. Allow them to make their own improvement. dedicated improvement and reflection time. So this can go one of two ways. This can be where they're looking at all of the drafts, they're looking at their notes, and they're thinking through, how can I improve based on all these things the teacher has told me over time, my homework, okay? And where they're reflecting. Okay, so this may even be like a journal entry. It could even be a journal entry where they're actually writing it, right? Like a journal entry, not a formal writing assignment. But this time, if it's 10 minutes for dirt, students are looking through their notes and they're writing, they're reflecting on their own work. Another version of this dirt could also be through peers. You could also use peers to do this. So where they are improving and reflecting based on someone else's work. They're swapping work of the other person and they're helping to do that. Someone also talked about the volume being increased. I'm not sure if I'm not loud enough. Sorry about that. I've maxed out my volume here. Okay, next slide.
We can hear you loud. It needs to increase.
Okay, I absolutely love this, especially when it comes to you know, homework. If I have a bit of I'm a bit lenient towards when it comes to English because that's my own area of expertise, right? So, and you know, when people write, they can write forever. So sometimes if you give assignments that are very simple, you can just give minus, equal, or plus. It could also be check, check plus, check minus. That's another version of this. Check would be equal, check minus, check plus. So check minus would be this piece of work is not as good as your last piece of work, or it needs a lot of improvement. It needs improvement. Okay. Check or equal sign could be this piece of work is equal to your last piece of work, or it's just on standard. It's just standard. It's regular. Then check plus would be this piece of work is better than your last piece of work, or it exceeds expectation in some way. So obviously someone that got a check minus one last time wants to get a check this time, or check plus. So even if you cannot, if you're skimming it and you just go through it very briefly, you don't have to give any marks. That is telling them where they are, and it helps them to take ownership over their own learning. That is the purpose of all of these strategies. Next slide. So whole class feedback. Okay, whole class feedback. So you're talking about how the class as a whole can improve. It's a summary of the feedback of an assignment that was given to the whole class. So what is the snapshot? What is a snapshot of how the entire class did? So are we saying that maybe 80% of you missed, missed this particular standard? So maybe if we're talking about math, fractions and mixed integers, or fractions and mixed numbers, 80% of you got those questions wrong, right? All of you got 3-digit addition correct. So they all know, okay, we've mastered, as a class, we've mastered this concept. Okay, ensure that all students receive high quality feedback that allows them to make progress, and encourage students to reflect and identify their own improvements. If students know as a class how they've done, then those that are at the lower end of the spectrum may not feel so bad, because they also see that, oh, I'm not the only one that's struggling with this. And that is where things like small group instruction can now come into play. Students that have gone above can say, okay, this is where I am in comparison to my peers. And people that are about the same level of class can say, okay, I am where everyone else is. It's very important for students to also see their contribution to the whole class. Oftentimes, when I see report cards, I know we do things like we give them position, your child came second out of 50th and all of that. That's some form of whole class feedback, but it doesn't give enough. Is it just that you're just giving the student the information so that there's a sense of shame, or there's a sense of superiority, or we want each one individually to move forward? Okay, next step. Then I talked about this briefly when I talked about, switching work when it came to the dirt, the dirt one. Okay, so this ACE peer assessment is really focused on peer assessment. What does the
Dijima, please indicate in the chat box if you can still hear the DJ. Okay. Okay, so it's I just wanted to be sure that I'm not the only one that cannot hear the DJ. She'll be joining through another device shortly. Dijima, we cannot hear you. It could probably be a network issue, and I know she'll be joining through the backup network. So please let's exercise patience, because this is quite interesting. And I hope all our participants have been taking notes, because shortly we'll be having the Q&A session where everyone would share or let us know which strategy they use to get feedback, or which strategy they feel is the best to be used to get feedback from their students. So in a short while, we'll be reconnecting with the DJ. So meanwhile, you can just look through the past strategies that she has talked about. She has talked about the dot marking, where you ask your students to use another color to write the correction from their work. And you as a teacher, when you see through and know that, oh, another color has been used, then you know that, oh, correction has been done. Then she talked about the seed marking. This is another strategy that you use in getting feedback. Okay, DG is back online. DG, ma, I was just referring to what you said. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So sorry about that. I'm having trouble seeing the screen.
Okay, whole class feedback.
Okay, it's covered. I'm sorry, it's covered by the okay, I'll just use what I have here. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know. Can you unshare and then share again?
Okay.
Thank you. So, but I'll continue talking through this particular slide, but if you can unshare, then share again. So we're talking about the ACE peer assessment. The teacher does not always have to do, the heavy lifting when it comes to the work of students, nor should they. We want also students to be experts when it comes to their own work and expectations. And when we give them the power, when we empower them to be able to do that, they will also be critiquing their own work in the same manner. So you will definitely get better quality as a result of that also. Thank you. So Challenge, that's where the C comes in. If something doesn't seem right, challenge it. So identify with a question mark and ask a question at the end of the work. Then E stands for extend, okay? Does something need more information? Perhaps some explanation or example is needed. Identify with an asterisk and ask a question or raise a point at the end. So ACE, A-C-E. Again, when we want children to be able to do this, it's not going to be perfect the first time or even the second or third time. You want to be able to scaffold. And believe me, this can be done even at the primary level, maybe upper primary. Okay, but definitely at the secondary level, it's something you can do. Or for all of the strategies that have been given, you can think through what aspects you could use for younger children all around. Okay.
DG, can you see the screen now?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much. So we can move on to the next. So Ms. Fauzia, are we able to do the poll?
So right now, the participants will be putting up the poll. So for you to let us know the strategies that you will be using or likely that you will use from the past strategies that we've been introduced to. So we have the dot marking, the SID marking strategy, the grow marking, the dirt, plus, minus, and equal to strategy, whole class feedback, and the ACE peer assessment. So please let us know what you think is the best strategy to use for getting feedback.
Okay.
Gigi, can you see the
so for this? Yes, I can see it. Thank you. So remember the dot, all the teacher is doing is putting a dot on the part of the work, and then the student should make the revisions using a purple pen. Okay, we don't want them to use red pen, so purple or yellow or orange, but I like purple, it's dark or green. Okay, purple pen. Then SID, S-I-D, the teacher would indicate one successful part of the work, one area of improvement, and one question, SID. Then grow, remember this is specifically for writing, grammar and spelling, the range of language, vocabulary, opportunities to improve, and what to do next. Then we have the DIRT, D-I-R-T, where the children are reflecting. They have time to reflect on how they can make their own improvements. Then we have the plus, equal, minus, either with a check or without a check. Very simple. Just students will know if their work is improving, if it's regressing, or if it's about the same, or if it's how it's relevant to the standard. So if they're average, if it's really good, if it needs improvement. Okay, then we have whole class feedback, summary of how the whole class is doing. Then the framework for peer assessment. Okay. All right, so what are we noticing? How many people? Oh, well, we haven't reached 100. Okay, we're getting there quickly. Well done. So far, we have about 32% participation. I would really love for us to get to at least 50%. It looks like dots, grow, and whole class are the most popular.
DG, you are sharing the, letting the cat out of the bag because the poll is still in progress.
Okay, you're right, okay.
Though, please know that you can have multiple choice. You can pick more than one strategy. If you feel you have 2 or 3 strategies that you might want to use, you can definitely click on those strategies.
Which Just want to have an idea as to which ones you think are going to be the most useful for you to use. We've gotten up to 50%. Well done. But we can go more. I'm going to give about 1 more minute. And please do remember that all of our resources, including this PowerPoint and relevant documentation, will be available on lagoslearnstogether.com. This session will also be available on YouTube. Okay, I think we can move on. We have about 56% participation rate. I know a few people have raised their hands, and the comments are great also. I know that the poll does not use doesn't take the chat in mind, but it's good to sort of read through your comments. Awesome. Ms. Fauzi, can you read some of the comments and then we can just move on?
Okay, so I've ended the poll now and I'm sharing the results. I don't know if everybody can see the result of what the poll is saying. DG, the result of the poll should be displayed now.
I don't see it. I'm not sure if anyone else sees it, but I don't see it.
Okay, if you can see the result of the poll from the result, we have about 51% of our participants saying that dot marking is the strategy to be used. We have 22 to 23% saying SID marking. 42% are saying the grow marking strategy. One other strategy that got the attention of the participants is the whole class feedback, coming to about 56% of those that took the poll saying that's a strategy that they would use to get feedback from students. The ACE peer assessment got about 36% of the people that participated in the poll, and the least favorite is the dirt.
I'm not surprised when it comes to reflection. Okay, thank you. So we've talked a lot about, and this is just, with this particular slide, this is just sort of rounding it up, okay? So reflection and refinement based on feedback on the part of the student. We've talked about this already. But I don't know if we asked them to indicate why. So which of the feedback techniques would you try? We've talked about that. Then, does this type of feedback create student-centered learning? If so, how? So if you can just post this in the chat, does this type of feedback create student-centered learning in your opinion? So based on the techniques you've used or you're choosing to use, do you think it helps to create student-centered learning? Sorry. And if so, how? You can indicate that in the chat, please. And I'll give about 1 minute for us to do that before we move on. Definitely, we're over time, and I want to really thank you for hanging with us. Many of you were here right on time at 10 o'clock, despite the technical issues that I had earlier on. I really want to thank you for that. We are almost done, though.
So we want to know why you chose those strategies. May I call 1 or 2 people, or do we just leave it in the chat box?
You can.
Okay, so I'll just randomly call 1 or 2 participants that have their hands raised to let us know which strategy did you choose and why. I'll call Ms. Bolanle Adebayo. and Mr. Babalola Wahid Aziz. So please unmute yourself and let us know what strategy you chose and why, briefly. Is Ms. Bolanle Adebayo, can you hear us, please? If you can, just unmute yourself. Likewise, Mr. Babalola Wahid. Unmute yourself and let us know what strategy you think is best for getting feedback. Ebun Oluwa Adebisi, you have your hand raised. Ogunjobi Oluwadurotimi, you have your hand raised too. Okay. Okay. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, can you hear me, please?
Yes, please. We can.
Hello. Okay. I want to choose the minus, plus, and equal strategy. The reason is because it makes the child, you have a personal relationship with that child, becomes student-centered or learner-centered. And I like that strategy because it looks pictorial. It looks pictorial, children like things that's like pictures and all that. So when you give them a plus, they want to know why you're adding that plus. When you give them a minus, and then you have explained to them what those signs actually stand for. So anytime they say a minus, they know that, oh, it's just almost just like my last piece of work. And a plus, they are happy, they are eager. It's so simple. It's a very simple strategy that the child already understands what that means, and you're able to carry that child along. So for me, I like that strategy.
Thank you very much for that comment. And I guess this is also a feedback from you, Dijima. We are having a feedback training and we're getting feedback from our participant. Wonderful. Diji, would you like to respond to that, ma'am?
Oh, to what she said? Yeah,
Yes.
I really, I'm really glad that you find it useful because, I mean, it's very simple. It's very simple for a teacher to do. You don't have to rack your brain, and then the heavy lifting then comes to the student, to strive to get better. You gave me check plus this time. I got check minus. I don't understand. So at least the child is thinking about it. Sometimes when a child, and then it's also if a child doesn't do too well, it's not so discouraging because you think about sometimes when homework is being distributed in the class and someone else sees a person's mark. So if someone got like maybe 25 over 100, that can be very embarrassing and shameful. But if you see a check minus, right, maybe, it's not as much because you haven't quantified it. Again, you won't use this for everything, but where you can, absolutely. Thank you so much for that feedback, ma'am.
Do we have time for one more person, ma?
Okay, one more and let's move forward.
Okay, Mr. Babalola Wahid, please go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Good morning,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
We can.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm still with the last speaker. Minus equal plus. Because minus, the student may not know the meaning of the word minus. Because they will show their notebook to each other or one another. But it's only when the student comes to you that we explain to him that he or she need to put in more effort. That this minus shows that it's not improving. The equal to shows that is not progressing and is not decreasing. That is equal to, which is best known to the student. And plus means that you are progressing, not that you are decreasing in the aspect of teaching and the learning in the classroom. So whatever you assess the student is best known to them, not to all of them. And the student who is ready to learn will know that I'm not doing well. This is minus. I need to put in more effort. this is positive. The student will need to put in more effort in the class. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. That, I mean, that really sums it up, you know. And moving forward, it's actually pushing students where you want them to take ownership over their learning. You know, we want them to feel confident enough to be able to do that. And it's easy on the part of the teacher. You know, you have 100 students and you are calculating and all that, you know. So it's a win-win for teachers and as well for students. Okay, thank you so much for your participation. So we'll be moving forward to the next slide.
Okay.
And we're really focusing on how this feedback, how it's going to be working for adults. Okay, I guess it's the next one. Okay, so let's look at this. We did mention this in a previous training, but like I said, we had touched on it briefly, and when we did that training, we realized we needed another one. So this is why we have this one today. So I really want to read through this for you to I'm sorry, can we mute Mr. Balola? Okay, thank you. So students setting and working with self-guided objectives, activities, and assessments. So this is just an example of a learning log, and this will be available. It's available through the link, and all materials will be available on LagosLearnsTogether.com. So we know that students who set their own learning goals tend to achieve more compared to when they focus on objectives set by the teacher. So this is also a way when we're checking in with our students, the way we have maybe parent-teacher conferences in the middle open day, depending on, you know, how you call it. But when we have conferences with parents, this will also be a document to compare the students' expectations with the teacher's expectations and how they align. I really like this because it is the student that is tracking their own internal processes. They're tracking, am I doing my homework? This is the goal. My goal is to complete all my homework. My goal is to get 80% and above. These are my goals. Okay, so it's worth it for the students, you know, set time aside for students to set goals and reflect on their learning. And I think this is something that should be done early on in the term. So not necessarily the first day or even the first week, but maybe second, third week. Okay, they've had a taste of what this new class is going to be like. Now, let's get down to business. So it's worth to set time aside daily, and they'll be going back to that document, reflecting on their learning, set goals. This, I said, will not happen overnight. It's part of a system that requires planning, but it's absolutely possible for every school, every resource level to do something like this. It will help them to become more aware of their own strengths and which areas they actually need to develop. This process of self-discovery is crucial to achieving your goals as a teacher, the goals of the students, and of course, the goals of education as a whole. All right, think of this as a self-evaluation for students. So we know that schools do a self-evaluation, and it's under the same principles that we think students should also be doing some sort of self-evaluation. They should have a log that they're keeping track of. So using this learning log can help students with keeping track of their goals and their next steps, right? So the teacher is giving some guidance on next steps, but they will also be able to think of some next steps that can aid them in progressing to the next stage. Sorry, next. Okay, so we've talked about that, that it's going to be available online, and you just click on it and you have access to that particular learning log. Now, putting it all together in practice. We know that now we're going to shift gears into providing feed forward to adults, because we know that we have school owners and we have our colleagues on the line. So how are we going to use this feed forward? How are we going to put this into practice? So consider your own context as a school owner, as a teacher, as an educator, as a curious citizen, as an evaluator. How would you incorporate the ideas from this workshop? Number one, that's one. Number two, what adaptations would you need to make for different settings? I want you to respond in the chat box for this. What do you need to change? What do you need to adapt? Right? So what adaptations would you need to make for different settings? And then three, what digital tools would support the learning? What digital tools would support this learning, this process? Because we can't just say we want students to do this if we are also not putting these best practices into use in our own context. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to do this.
Want to say in the chat box responses,
So you can respond by the number. So number one, ideas. Number two, adaptations. And number three, digital tools. 1, 2, 3. So putting it all into context. How would you incorporate it? How would you incorporate? And how do you need to adapt? I did talk earlier on about if you're dealing with, primary 1, primary 2, primary 3 students, it may be different. If you're dealing with SS3, SS2, it may be different too, because they're more mature and you can give them more responsibility. Okay, so while we anticipate that in the chat box, let's move on to the next slide. So this is a professional feed-forward strategy. Number one, I did talk about, the importance of using this in your own context. So we know that reverse feedback, we're going to read through a scenario. We're going to read through a scenario, and and the framework is also using this framework. Okay, so this is the framework, and then we'll go through a scenario. So provide a school or a colleague the opportunity to ask for guidance relating to an upcoming challenge. So if we just want to, I want us to round up on the previous one before we actually move forward to this one. So let me just give you, because I don't want to get our feedbacks confused or feed forward confused. Okay, so let's just have 1 minute to round up, and then Mrs. Fauzia, sorry, Mrs. Quadri will talk about some of them. So Fauzia, if you could just help us to share some of what we noticed, and then we'll move on to this one.
Okay, very well, ma. So we've got comments saying that a digital tool will help a large class, that would help the large class would be like a projector. Another strategies, somebody said all strategies are superb. I need to apply each of them as I deem it fits, as the strategy suits the purpose. Okay, a step down training that would make what I have learned go round will first be conducted. Then number two, I will ensure feedback from all learners. And number three, a projector would be employed. So she's saying, putting it all into practice, how she would want to incorporate the idea from the workshop would be to go around first, and then what adaptation she would do differently would be to ensure feedback from all learners, and the digital tool to support the learning would be a projector. Most people are saying projector as the digital tool. Some say laptops, educational tablets. Another person has said YouTube video can be a digital tool that could be included for learning.
Okay, this is all great feedback. So let's move on to this very final part of this workshop. Very short, won't take much time at all. So we're going to talk about reverse feedback, okay? And there's an example that we'll share, but I want you to think through what this framework entails. I don't know if any school is willing to jump in with me as we try to role play how we can use professional feed forward. I'm going to read through the framework first, but I want you to think through if there's an upcoming challenge you're anticipating and how you can use this framework for that strategy. So we'll read it and then ask for one volunteer to help us role play this. So number one, you describe your goal in simple and clear terms. The goal might be something as simple as, I want to complete more tasks every week. Very simple. Then it could be asking for, then the second one is ask for suggestions. Your partner will give useful suggestions on how to achieve your goal. There should be 0 references to the past. The focus is on making the future better. Okay, that's the focus, and this is why this is feed forward. Then number 3, listen carefully. Don't be a combative listener. So in other words, okay, don't be reactive. So improve your listening skills. There are some tips that are indicated that you'll access later on. Write suggestions down and only give positive statements like, that is an impressive notion. So you listen and then you only give positive statements. Then number 4, say thank you. This is not a time for debate. Reflect on the suggestions that have been provided. Then swap roles. Both of you change. Then repeat the steps with your partner, describing their goal and you providing feed forward. Are there any questions about this process before we move to the case study?
Okay. On feed forward, no question, though we have a lot of questions in the Q&A, but it's not really particular about this professional feed forward. It's just I think questions that they've been having to ask maybe at the end of the session.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to the let's jump to the case study. I need a participant, and maybe we'll have to call on someone if none are willing.
Okay, at this point, I saw so many hands raised and I've definitely lowered all hands. So any hand I see raised now definitely wants to participate in the role play. So if you want to participate, join the DG in the role play of the professional feed forward case study. Let's see your hands up. We have 2 hands up actually at this moment, Ma. We have
Okay,
Master.
that works because we have 2 examples here. So Ms. Fauzia, you will read where it says example 1. I will read, DG will read feedback, and our participants will read the feed forward.
Okay.
Okay.
So Ms. Martha and Mrs. Omobola Akomola
Okay,
Ms.
so
Amola-
Martha will do the feed forward, for example, 1, and then Mrs. Is it Komolafe you said? That person, the feed forward in example 2. There are 2 examples embedded here, and I know that it's kind of small. The font, we need to make it darker. We'll improve on that next time.
Okay, so Miss Martha, can you hear us? Are you ready?
Yes, please. Yes, I'm with you, ma.
Okay, all right. So I'll be reading the first example. Did you be reading the feedback while you'll be reading the feed forward? If you cannot see, you can zoom in from your device. If you zoom it in, you would see the text clearly. So
All right, ma, I've done that.
Okay, as I read now, example 1, DJ, learning differences are not being addressed in lessons.
Well, we noticed that children with learning differences were ignored in several classes, and that teachers could not articulate their strategy for supporting the students. We need this to improve by our next visits.
All right. We're happy to see that your school
Hold on,
accepts
before
students.
you move on, I'm sorry. Before you move on, what is wrong with that feedback? Miss Martha.
From the feedback, it's like a general conclusion has been made.
Okay. Okay, it's a general conclusion. What do we notice about it? It's not all negative, right? Because it's not like they're lying. They're not lying about what they've noticed, right? What else do you notice about that feedback?
There's a room for improvement.
Okay, we need this to improve by our next. So they've given a time-bound time for them that it needs to be. So that's the strength of that particular feedback, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, please go into your feed forward, ma'am.
All right, ma'am. We're happy to see that your school accepts students with learning differences. Would like to help your teachers meet the need of the students. Please enroll them in XYZ course to help them succeed.
Okay. How is that different? And what does that do, Miss Martha? I have you on a hot seat. How is it different?
Okay. There's a suggestion, something like a solution being put forward.
Is a resource
to help, yes, to help teachers to do better by putting them in for a course. And this should be able to help the students' learning differences.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure other people would have noticed the differences, but because of time, we can't call on you. But if you could indicate that in the chat. Well done, Miss Martha. Let me clap for you.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Okay. So example 2.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Martha. The second example that will be role playing, I don't know if Miss Omobola can hear us. You'll be
yes, I can.
Okay. So I'll read the second example. DJ will say the feedback, and then you give us the reason for the feed forward. So the second example, you are welcomed into a school building without being asked for identification.
You need to address the safety of children. You put them at risk by allowing us entry without even asking for ID. Change this before our next visit. What are the strengths and area of improvement for this feedback, ma'am?
Sorry, can you come again, please?
Yes, ma'am. Should I read it again for you?
No, just the question you asked after reading.
Yes, so I wanted to know, what is the strength and area of improvement of this feedback?
Security.
Okay. So that is the strength?
No, the area of improvement is security.
Okay.
Not allowing children to come in without ID is the weakness, the problem.
Yes. Okay. So when they say change this before our next visit, they've told them what to do, right?
Yes.
So they have a next step, but if you have a next step and you don't know the roots of that next step, whether maybe they don't really have a security, consistent security guard, or someone is out sick, when you don't really know the onus of it, it's likely or possible that that may happen again the next time, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So can you just please read the feed forward?
Thank you for the warm welcome. Your security team seems to have forgotten to ask for our IDs. Please do not let anyone into the building without an appointment or ID.
So what do we notice about the feed forward?
About the feed forward is the problem has been noticed. Sorry, yes. The feed forward is saying that it's just it's suggesting the solution to the problem, to what should be done in the next gathering.
Yes.
It's talking about what should be done in the next gathering.
Yes, they actually, well, this particular example, they actually both do say that, right? But if you look at the fact that they focus on one positive notion, you are not to lie, we're not saying you should lie, but we're saying that you should look for something positive so that the feedback we're giving is received. Right?
Okay.
We want the feedback to be receptive. We want to acknowledge that, okay, they greeted us well, they welcomed us, right? And we want to, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt that this is not the norm, right? So this is not always going to be the case. This is not always going to be the case, but it's just good when we go back. Thank you so much, Mrs. Omobola. Round of applause for you. I don't know if I pronounced that well. Ms. Fauzi, can we go to the previous slide just for us to see the steps? Okay, so describe our goal in clear terms, ask for suggestions, listen carefully, say thank you. Okay, say thank you or be appreciative about something that they've done well. Okay, next slide. So we finally come to the end. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I believe I should show my video now. I want to say a hearty thank you to you all for lasting this long on our training for today. It's been a great one. I want to thank you. I believe this is the 11th session. Ms. Fauzia, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the 11th session, I believe, and we have a few more coming. I hope you have a wonderful day, remainder of your day, and God bless you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. Do have a great day.